Hello and welcome. We are in our 10th class. I can't believe it. Our 10th class for our Tunisian sampler shawl that we started way back in January. Um, and today we are going to do section 12, a little bit of lace. So I wanted to show you, I'll switch to my camera in a second, but this brown section is the little bit of lace. And I think once it doesn't show up, I think it'll show up better on the camera when it's laying down so you can see the holes. Essentially, what we're doing is we're making holes on purpose. That's all that lace is, whether you're knitting or crocheting, is that we're putting a hole where we want it, not on a mistake. So it still has a texture to it, but it has a little bit of openness. There's only so much you can do, I think, in Tunisian because of the return pass. There's just a blockiness to it that it's not going to be light and delicate like you might think of the word lace. Um, but I think a bad name would have been a little bit of holes for this section. So a little bit of lace works just fine. All right, let me switch over. So I'm up to date on my big one here. And I am promising myself I'm going to weave in some ends, but I am just loving how it's coming out. Really, really nice. It's going to be a very nice, oversized shawl, and it's just got such a great drape to it. All right, so let's switch to the camera so you can see it up close. And then I'm trying to invest in a better camera. Let's see here. Oop, not that one. Let's make it a little brighter. There we go. Okay. So let me just show you that edging or where we're at on it here. So it is 2 rows. So I think the transition row for the next pattern is this stitch. I think it will look nice when it is done 3 times because it's pattern row 1 and then pattern row 2 and then you do pattern row 2 again. So I think when you get the odd number of rows, I think it will look better. It'll look open up a little bit, but it definitely has a lovely texture to it, and it's not like any other texture we've done. But I'll show you how we're going to make those little holes. So, all right, little bit of lace. So my ever-changing little swatchy here. I think I'm going to frame this. I'm going to cut all the ends. I'm not going to weave them away. I'm going to tie them off and cut them in. I think I'm going to put in a little frame, a little journey of our of our shawl together. All right. Let's I think I can probably take this cord off, although I have it on there pretty tight. Okay. That's the part I hate is that it keeps hitting the deck. Okay, I have done my transition row from our previous section, which was the slanted stitch. So I'm in my new color, the color I'm going to be doing this in. And so we're adding a new little element to here. We're adding a yarn over, which is not something we've really done before. Better. Okay. All right, so it starts like all of our stitches with a full stitch. Okay. And then we're going to do a knit stitch in the next stitch. So remember a knit stitch, we want to go, let me get it to focus. There we go. We want to go between the front leg and the back leg of that stitch. Now, because we had done a slanted stitch, it's got a little bit of an angle to it. So make sure you're getting into between the legs of the stitch to do your knit stitch there. It does feel a little bit different. Now I'm going to yarn over. So a yarn over is adding a loop to our hook without going into a stitch first. So you're just yarning over, coming across the back of your hook to the front. That's the yarn over. And then we're going to do, it says two Tunisian simple stitch together over the next two stitches. So what she wants us to do is over these next two stitches, we're going to simple stitch them together. So I'm going to go underneath the bar of the first one, underneath the bar of the second one, pull my yarn through both. So now I've taken those two stitches and turned them into one, but my stitch count does not change because I added a yarn over. So that's what we're going to be matching every two simple stitch together with a matching yarn over. So our stitch count will be the same except for our regular increases here. Okay. And that is our repeat. Two knit stitches. So now we're into our brackets. Two knit stitches, yarn over, two simple stitches together. Okay. So we're going to knit and knit and then yarn over and then two together and then knit and then knit, yarn over, two simple stitches together. Okay, and we're going to do this all the way up to our marked stitch. So knit, I think I made sure I had the right amount, but let's find out. Nope, I sure didn't, which is excellent because now I can tell you how to fudge it if you need to. All right, so in order to do the next row, so I don't have the right number of stitches to get to my center stitch because this is my swatch and I didn't count ahead of time. I need to have, in order for the next, the pattern row 2 to work, I need to have these little groups of knit stitch, yarn over, two together. So these little groups of 4. Knit, knit, yarn over, two together. All right. So I don't have enough here. So I can do knit and so I want to end up with, beginning with this one, 4 stitches on my hook. So I'm going to do a knit, I'm going to do a full, I'm going to do a yarn over, and you need to have the yarn over. That's important. We can't just add regular stitches. We need to have the yarn over. And then instead of doing 2 together, I'm just going to do a simple stitch here because that still gives me knit, knit, yarn over, and we'll pretend that's together. So it gives me the right grouping of stitches for the next row. Does that make sense? So you can fudge it just a little bit if you need to. She tells you in the pattern that you're going to do that repeat 39 times. So what you'll have is you'll have your beginning full stitch, and then we did a knit stitch, and then we did a yarn over and a 2 together, and then it's the repeat part we need to do 39 times. So there's a group of 4. That's 1. That's 1 repeat. That's 2. And now I have 3. So on my little swatch here, I have 3 repeats plus the beginning that was outside of the brackets. On your project, if you're count is correct. You should have your beginning part and then 39 groups of 4 going across. And they do need to have the yarn over because we need that yarn over for the next pattern. Okay, so I got to my center. I'm going to do my increase like I always do. A full and knit and a full. Let's put that back in. Okay. After the center stitch, you're going to go ahead and start your repeat. So knit stitch in the next 2 stitches. So knit, knit, yarn over, 2 simple stitches together. Knit, knit, yarn over, 2 together. And you're going to do that 39 times. So you'll have 39 little groups of 4. And I would suggest that you make sure you have that before you move on to the other side. So when you get to your center, make sure you've got those 39 sets plus the beginning. Fudge if you need to, okay? Um, if you don't have 39 cents, if you have 40 sets, that's fine, as long as you have a complete set. Or if you have 38 sets, we'll fudge it for the next part if we need to. Don't go back and change a whole bunch of things, but make sure you've got, those groupings of 4, okay? And then do the same thing across here. So I should be able, I thought I had worked it out here, but let's find out. Knit, knit. I probably didn't, hold on one second. So we do that 39 times, knit stitch in the next one. Oh, so when we made the adjustment, we did a little part at the beginning, we do another little part at the end. So I'm going to do a knit stitch in the next. I'm going to yarn over and do 2 together, I believe. And then I do my full stitch. Yarn over. Okay, I didn't get it right there either, so let's make it right. I finish with a knit stitch in the next one, yarn over, 2 together, across the next 2 stitches, full stitch in the last space to increase. Okay, so that's where my full stitch. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to work it in here. We're going to do a full stitch, we're going to count that as a knit, and a knit, and a yarn over, and pull through. Okay, so I've got my groupings. Then I'll do my full stitch. You know what? I'm only supposed to do 1 knit. Because the full stitch is going to add a stitch. So knit, yarn over, 2 together. There we go. And make my full stitch. Chain 1, do my return pass. Okay. And you do your return pass the same way we've always done. The pattern row 2 is essentially the same, except in pattern row 1, we made yarn overs. So now we've got these little yarn over spaces that we're going to be inserting our hook into. That's really the only difference between these 2 pattern rows. And then If you wanted to make this bigger, you would just keep repeating pattern row 2 because it adds yarn overs and it goes into yarn overs. All right, so let me get here to the end. Okay. All right, so pattern row 2, we'll start with our full stitch. Okay. And then we are going to yarn over. Okay, and then we're going to do 2 together. And then we're going to do a knit stitch in the yarn over space in the previous row. Okay, so I'm right at this spot, and you can see, let me lay it down and zoom in. So I'm ready to go in right here. And this is my yarn over space. It doesn't look exactly like a regular stitch, but here is the front leg of the yarn over right here. And it comes around and there's the back leg. So you're going to do a knit stitch in that space. It really ends up feeling more like a full stitch. But the point is not to go over here, but to go here and do a knit stitch. Okay, so it's opening up that yarn over space to make the hole a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'll do another one. You'll see why it works out, why we needed to have those yarn overs. So we did a knit stitch in the yarn over space, knit stitch in the next stitch, and then our pattern repeat starts. Yarn over, 2 slips, simple stitches together, and then knit stitch in the yarn over space. So it should put you right here where the yarn over space is. Knit stitch in the yarn over space and knit stitch in the next stitch. So we're still doing 2 knit stitches, a yarn over and 2 together. We're just changing the order a little bit, okay? So now I'm ready to do, let's see, did I do that right? Hold on, let me take it back. There was my 2 together. All right, yarn over. I'm sorry, knit stitch in the yarn over, knit stitch in the next stitch, yarn over, 2 together. So when I open this up, I should see my next yarn over, and I do right there. So knit stitch in the yarn over, knit stitch in the next stitch, yarn over, 2 simple stitches together. I actually kind of found this relatively meditating because it opened it up. Oh, that yarn over is there. So into the yarn over, into the stitch, and then yarn over. What do we do before the center stitch? 2 together, so that worked out. So don't forget to make your yarn overs on this row as well. So you can see how knitting, making a knit stitch into the yarn over space is what's giving you those holes. It's what's opening up the holes. The yarn over starts the hole, and then knitting, doing the knit stitch into that space is what opens it up a little bit. Okay. And then you work your center increase, go down the other side, and I found I had to, I underlined where my center stitch was so I didn't get lost. Like, do I have to skip a stitch? Do I go right into my pattern repeat? Because the 2 rows were separate. Now I was doing it a couple of times because I was doing it this morning in class and I was doing it on my actual project. So I just found it helpful to underline or circle or highlight where the center stitch is. So I know what comes before and I know what comes after. It was just visually easier for me. That might help you as well. So then after the center increase, you'll do a knit stitch in the next two stitches, and then you'll start your repeat. So you're going to have extra stitches here. You're going to be knit stitch in the next two stitches, and then knit stitch in the yarn over space, knit stitch in the next stitch, yarn over, two together. Okay, because it's a different sequence, it makes these holes be offset from each other, which is why it isn't exactly the same as pattern row one. The combination is the same, but the number of stitches that we use or when we start the pattern repeat is a little different to get those yarn overs to open up. Okay? Does that make sense? I'm happy to answer questions. I have to admit, I don't think I'm not getting the whole lacy thing. It just looks like another textured stitch to me, but I like it. So, and it's two rows.
I guess I just have to be careful that I am in the right hole and not in the other one.
Correct, correct. And I found, if you're working really tight, that could be problematic. So,
Hmm.
just make sure you're looking for, let's see, there's a two together, that you're looking for that yarn over hole, which looks different than the stitch next to it. Okay. Honestly, it the worst thing if you go into the wrong place? Probably not, but you're going to have a little extra yarn coming across. It's just going to open up a different spot, but it's not like it's opening it up so much, so be patient with yourself. I think you'll be fine. So I just kind of moved along and used my fingers to open up that spot. And then the regular stitch was right next to it. And then yarn over and then two together.
Mhm.
So I find that in looking at this, I think the easiest thing to make a mistake on is to forget to make your yarn over.
Mhm.
And so by giving yourself a break and then looking before you cross over that center, do you have the yarn overs are going to be easy to see because they go a little bit sideways. Your
Mhm.
regular stitches are going to be on there straight up and down, and your yarn over is going to be a little sideways. So make sure you've got knit stitch, yarn over together, knit,
Mhm.
knit, yarn over together. So visually, it was pretty easy to count, and those groups of four really broke themselves up and it was easy to count. So you can see if all of a sudden you're going into you're not going into a yarn over when you think you should be, then
Mhm.
it happened on the previous row. And that's a lot to take out. So you need those yarn overs.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So all in all, it was pretty easy. Um, there's a lot of words in the pattern.
Hmm.
But highlight, so something happens, whatever's happening in the bracket is what you're mostly going to do across the row. So maybe that's what you want to highlight.
Hmm.
And then just make sure you're attending to what happens before and what happens after the brackets so that you get the right number of stitches and the right kind of stitches for the next row. And then when you get to, if you like to do your transition row ahead of time, which I'm going to do mine tonight because I don't want to have to remember this all over again. She doesn't just tell you do pattern row two. She writes it out again, but it is essentially pattern row two again
Okay.
with the additions of, because now we've got increases, we have to account for those stitches and making it all work. But the repeat is all the same, except that the repeat starts with the yarn over. But it's still yarn over, two together, two knit stitches. So the same kinds of stitches, it's just the order in which they happen because we've got to account for those increased stitches. So, And then we'll be doing textured stripes next time. And then we'll have our last class.
Yep. Mhm.
No, we're gonna have to all get together in person and do
Yep.
a picture with our shawls.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
Yes. All righty.
All righty. Any other questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, if you come across something you're not sure, you know where I live.
Yeah.
Give us a call, give us an email, and if you're watching this later, don't hesitate to reach out, and we're happy to work with you. So,
Mhm.
all right, we'll see you next time.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.